There was a time when new gadgets felt like experiments. Smartphones added unusual sensors. Laptops introduced bold new input methods. Consumer devices regularly shipped with features that felt unfamiliar, risky, and sometimes unfinished. These experimental hardware features were meant to signal innovation and ambition. Today, that era is quietly fading. Across US devices, experimental hardware features are disappearing, not through announcements or reversals, but through absence. And this decline reveals how priorities in consumer tech have fundamentally changed. Experimental hardware features were once a way for companies to stand out. When markets were growing fast and upgrades were frequent, brands competed on novelty. A new button, a new form factor, or a new interaction method could grab attention and justify upgrades. Even if a feature failed, the cost of failure felt manageable. Consumers replaced devices quickly, and mistakes were forgiven as part of progress. That environment no longer exists. Devices last longer. Consumers upgrade less often. Expectations are higher. When a feature does not work well, it is not seen as bold experimentation. It is seen as poor design. This shift in user expectations is one of the main reasons experimental hardware is declining. Reliability has overtaken novelty as a priority. US consumers increasingly expect devices to work consistently every day, not occasionally impress them. Experimental hardware introduces unknowns. New sensors, new mechanical components, or new input systems often behave unpredictably across real-world conditions. When reliability matters more than surprise, experimentation becomes a liability. Another major factor is the rising cost of hardware mistakes. Experimental features often require custom components, unique manufacturing processes, and additional testing. If a feature fails or is poorly received, those costs cannot be recovered easily. In today's tighter margin environment, US tech companies are less willing to absorb those losses. Hardware decisions are being scrutinized more carefully, and anything that does not clearly justify its cost is often removed before launch. User adoption has also played a role. Many experimental hardware features simply did not change behavior. Novel sensors went unused. Alternative input methods were ignored. Secondary displays were rarely checked. When companies studied usage data, they found that most users relied on a small set of core interactions. Experimental features added complexity without delivering lasting value. Over time, those features were quietly dropped. Durability concerns further accelerated this decline. Experimental hardware often introduces moving parts, fragile components, or exposed mechanisms. These features tend to wear out faster or fail under stress. As devices are expected to survive years of daily use, anything that compromises durability becomes harder to justify. Simplified hardware designs with fewer points of failure are easier to support and maintain. Battery life has also influenced this shift. Experimental features often consume power continuously or unpredictably. Sensors that are always active, displays that refresh constantly, or motors that respond to new interactions all draw energy. In a market where battery endurance is one of the most important buying factors, features that drain power without clear benefit are increasingly unacceptable. Support and servicing costs matter as well. Experimental hardware increases variability. When devices behave differently due to niche features, diagnosing issues becomes harder. Support teams must be trained on more scenarios. Repairs become more complex. For companies supporting millions of devices, this complexity adds up quickly. Removing experimental hardware simplifies support and reduces long-term costs. Another reason experimental features are fading is software maturity. Many functions that once required dedicated hardware can now be handled through software optimization or existing components. Instead of adding new sensors or physical controls, companies can improve experiences through firmware and system-level refinement. This makes experimentation less visible, but often more effective. Consumer trust also plays a role. After years of high-profile hardware experiments that were later abandoned, users became cautious. People hesitate to rely on features that might disappear in the next generation. US tech brands have learned that trust is easier to build through consistency than through surprise. Stable designs encourage confidence and long-term loyalty. Manufacturing scale is another constraint. Experimental hardware can work well in limited production, but scaling it reliably across millions of units is difficult. Minor tolerances become major problems. Quality control becomes harder. As devices reach massive global volumes, companies favor proven designs that scale predictably. Regulatory and compliance pressures have added further friction. New hardware features often require additional testing, certification, and compliance checks. This slows down development and increases risk. In regulated categories, companies prefer hardware designs that stay within established frameworks rather than pushing boundaries that invite scrutiny. Design philosophy has also matured. Early consumer tech rewarded visible innovation. Today's market rewards refinement. Devices are expected to feel familiar, comfortable, and intuitive. Radical hardware changes disrupt muscle memory and workflows. U.S. companies increasingly view that disruption as a negative rather than a positive. This does not mean innovation has stopped. It means innovation has moved inward. Improvements now focus on efficiency, stability, and integration rather than bold new hardware elements. These changes are harder to market, but they deliver more consistent value over time. Another important factor is replacement cycles. When consumers upgraded frequently, experimental features had more chances to succeed. Now that devices are kept longer, companies must be confident that every hardware feature will remain useful for years.